Hey, welcome to Taylor's Trick Taking Table. I'm Taylor. Happy Leap Day. Happy Leap Year. So sorry for the title of today's video. A lot of nines. T9, T9, totally not T9, and totally not T9, and F29. What does that all mean? Well, T9 is a trick-taking convention gathering in Cincinnati. We have previous videos of it on the channel. Check it out. James Nathan runs it. It's easily my favorite convention, even though this year is like the year of conventions for me. I am every month kind of going to a convention. I should create one of those tour band shirts, you know what I mean? Where they have on the back everywhere they go. Whew, this bit's getting exhausted. But this video is about T9, the wonderful convention that James put on. Oh, it's so sensational. And the other T9 in the title is because, as a fun little thing for the game, Chris Ray, the wonderful Chris Ray, made a T9 postcard game where the hook is players would get postcards. And these are the cards that they're playing trick-taking with. See, they had letters, stamps on the postcards. It's hard to talk and think and jump and leap. But, okay, so you would send these in the mail. And the hook of the game is everyone who went to the convention is mailing these in. And the card that you play with the number, if it's the majority of the suit that gets into the mailbox that week, and you play the highest, you win points for all the other cards that come in. Also, if you're in the minority and you play the lowest, you get points for the cards that were the highest. Kind of makes sense. I don't know. Hope it does. I'll just do the rules teach on the table. I am so sorry if you just subscribed and this makes no sense. This video is already off to a crazy start. Also, he made Totally Not T9, which is a trick-taking game where, no luck, you draft your hand. Wild. I'll teach you how to play. And in this game is Totally Not T9, otherwise known as Out Bootleggers, where the game is everyone has their hands face up on the table, and on your turn, you can play a card from anyone's hand. Wild. So we are going to be covering those on the channel today. In addition, we're going to do a T9 con recap. It's a wonderful convention with absolutely wonderful people. So amazing. And what is that final thing on the title? F29. Well, as you can tell, we're already covering 3 Chris Ray games. Why not celebrate today, Leap Day, with the special edition of Chris Ray's February Leap Day. So Chris Ray has this wonderful thing where he comes out with multiple rule sets for his games. So Letter Tricks has multiple rule sets. Well, every February, he has rule sets that come out for his game February. So to celebrate Leap Year, he has another new rule set. So check him out. Absolutely wonderful. I'm such a Rainiac. He's the second most cover designer on the channel for a reason. Wonderful person. In fact, me and him are going to be hosting the trick-taking room in Dice Tower West this March. In a couple of weeks, come on down. We have panels with Thinker Themer. We have wonderful events, a bacon tournament, cat box, all these wonderful things. I'm running out of breath. So, without further ado, we're going to do a montage, and we're going to talk about T9. And thank you so much. Y'all the absolute best. We'll get to the giveaways in a little bit. And finally, thank you so much to James Nathan, who always just puts on the best convention ever. Happy Leap Day.
having fun. The less we say about it, the better. Make it up as we go along. Feet on the ground, head in the sky. It's okay, I know nothing's wrong. Nothing. Oh, I got plenty of time. Oh, you got light in your eyes, and you're standing here beside me. I love the passing of time. Never for money, always for love. Cover up and say goodnight. Say goodnight. Home is where I want to be, but I guess I'm already there. I come home, she lifted up her wings. I guess that this must be the place. I can't tell one from another. Did I find you or you find me? There was a time before we were born. If someone asks, this is where I'll be. Where I'll be. Ah, we drifting it out. Ah, sing it to my mouth. And of all those kinds of people, you got a face with a view. I'm just an animal looking for a home, and share the same space for a minute or two. And you love me till my heart stops. You love me till I'm dead. As the light up, eyes look through you. Cover all the blank spots. Hit me on my head. I got to. Hey!
The deck in T9, a postcard game, is made up of a variety of suits with different numbers. I'm not quite sure. To set up, each player is going to get mailed 6 cards, and these cards will have suits on them and ranks on them. How the game works is you are going to mail James one of these postcards, and then he's going to look at which postcards come in for a certain week. The majority suit that comes in is going to be a winning suit, and the person who played the highest number of that suit is going to win points, and they're going to win points of the number of cards that came in the minority of suits. So let's say it looked like this in a given week, and that this was blue, so there were 2 blue. So there was 2 blue and 1 green. The blue was the majority, so you're going to look at the highest number, and they're going to win points equal to the minority suit, so that'd be 1 point. This player would get 1 point. And then the lowest card in the minority suit, which would over here, would be the lowest card over here. This is 8, so it's this one, is going to win points in the majority suit, so 2. So the person who mailed in the 8 is going to get 2 points. Let's say in a bigger example, 6 different suits got mailed in, and one of the suits had 3 cards in it and the rest just had 1 each. The highest in that majority that had the 3 cards in it is going to win 5 points because it's 1 point per other cards in the suits. And then you're going to look at the other cards in the suits, you're going to find the lowest, and then they are going to win 3 points because the majority has 3. All the ties are shared. That's kind of how it works. You're also going to get a bonus point if you were the only card that was sent in by the time James checks his mailbox. And that's how to play roughly. At the very end, in the last kind of month or few weeks or a couple weeks or a week or so, the tricks get worth more points to incentivize players, if they want to mail a bunch of cards in at the end. And that's how to play the once-in-a-lifetime game of T9, a postcard game. The deck in Stamp Out Bootleggers is 4 suits numbered 0 through 10. Here we have a game of Totally Not T9 set up for the only 4 players. This is going to be a super quick rules example here. So you're going to deal out the cards equally. You're not going to include the 2 pass cards. That's going to be for round 2. Players are going to look at their hand and they're going to draft their hand 2 cards at a time. So maybe this player here picks these 2 and they're going to pass to the left to the next player. And then they're going to get from this player over here a hand with 2 less cards. They're going to choose which ones they want, and they're going to pass to the left. This is going to keep going until the final card is just going to be past them. It's just going to be 1 left, and now players will have their hand fully drafted. The player with the green 0 is going to lead. Let's say it's this barrel player here. They're going to lead a card. It's must follow, and the highest of the lead suit is going to win. And let's just flip out an example here. The winner of the trick is going to take the lowest card that was played into their score pile. It's going to go like that. And the person who played the lowest is going to play the winning card into their score pile. Score piles are open info. You can look at them whenever you want. And these 2 cards are going to be set aside for the second round. The player who played the highest trick is going to lead to the next trick. This is going to keep going until all the cards have been played. Then you play round 2. So that's going to take all the cards that were cut out. You know, those 2 middle ones. You're going to shuffle them. So players are going to draft again for round 2. You're going to also shuffle into that these pass cards. So all those cards and the pass cards are going to be shuffled, and the players are going to draft their hand again for round 2. The difference in the draft is players are going to go the opposite way, so counterclockwise, and they're only going to draft 1 card at a time. Once the draft is done, the player with the green 0 is going to lead again, whether in their hand or in their score pile from the first round. They are going to play again the same trick-taking flow. The last thing to explain are these pass cards. A player who has a pass card can play it whenever they want, even if they could follow suit. And what these can do, so let's just mock up a trick here, is if a player who wins, they could take the lowest, and you know, if there's a tie, it's off suit, so it would be this 6 blue here, so this person could play the 6 blue here, or they could take a pass card into their score pile. Let's say they didn't, and then they instead took that. The person who played the lowest could also then take the pass card if they wanted to, or they could just take the tallest. What the pass card does is if the person took it at the end of the game, they can, because these 2 cards are going to get discarded, right? They can choose any of the cards that was off to the side and replace it with their first pass card. So the person who has the first pass will do this first. Maybe they want that 6 for reasons. And then the player who has the second would do the same with the leftover cut cards from the trick play. Small example to point out, if it was led red here and everyone's off suit, if there is a tie for lowest, the person who plays last, so the person who ties, can choose whether they are the lowest or the second lowest above any other tied players. But after that second round, players are just going to look through their score pile, and the goal is to get as close to 40 before going over. The player closest to 40 wins. If everyone goes over 40, it's the player with the lowest score. And if it's a tie, it's the player with the fewest cards, and if that's a tie, shared victory. You can also play 3 rounds where you get the cards that were cut again, and you play again with just 3 cards. Whew! But that's kind of how to play Totally Not T9. Here we have the game of Stamp Out Bootleggers set up for 4 players. It's just going to be a rough overview of how to play. You are going to deal out the cards equally, and then players are going to flip their cards, open information, spread out so you can kind of see everything. It's an open information game. Players are going to be playing off of each other's hands. The goal is, in the tricks that you win, you're supposed to get as close to 40 without going over. Hitting 40 exactly is okay. How it works is you can pick any hand you want and lead any card as if it was from you, and let's say it's this player is the start player, it's the next player with a birthday, let's say it's this person, they're going to pick this hand maybe. And when you pick a hand, you're going to put your barrel on the hand to denote that that hand has been used in this trick. Then you're going to put the card that you use in front of you. So then it goes clockwise. Maybe it's this person here. They could pick maybe this person. We're going to return the favor, so they're going to play an 8. You can't pick yourself, so maybe this player up here just picks themselves and they play this 9. And then finally, this player would have to pick themselves, and let's say they pick this 2. So then it would evaluate the same way. So highest of the lead suit would take it if there's no trump. This player is just going to take this trick, and then they're going to lead to the next trick. Again, they could pick themselves if they wanted to, but maybe they come across the aisle and they pick this person. If it came to this person and they realize, oh, over here, they don't have any blue. So you have to follow suit. So like, let's say we're going to remove the barrels because only this one's been taken. If they would have picked over here, they'd have to pick a blue. If they would have picked over here, they had to pick a blue. But since this doesn't have any blue, they could pick over here and trump in if they want to. So this person, let's just say they pick this, they play the 0, and then the left person would have to pick themselves, and then they just pick that. If there's trump, the highest of the trump suit is going to win, so this person takes all of these into their hand, and then they would lead to the next trick. So though like this is going to continue, again, you must follow suit if you can, but you don't have to pick a hand that would follow suit, as in that last example. You're going to go until everyone has played out their entire hand, and then how you score is, you're going to look at the positive values for all the non-trump in your hand. So if this was the score pile for the bottom player here, they would be at 8 points. And then if you have a matching number, so not a good example here, but let's say they had this one. If you have a matching number, it actually blots it out. It stamps it out. So you don't have a 1, since you had a matching 1, that just blocks it. So now you're actually at 7. So that's the flow, and it's whoever's closest to 40 without going over wins. So that was T9, and then D9, and then totally not T9, and totally not T9, otherwise known as Stamp Out Bootleggers. So I'll give a little bit of thoughts, kind of more first impressions, because obviously T9, the postcard game, is more of like a high-level concept of what is a trick-taking game. I know we've covered a lot of is this a trick-taking game games on the channel, like Count Up 21, Cinderella's Dance, if you didn't know. And this felt like one of those games. It's so cool to use the idea of letters as the tricks and to play out over the course of weeks, months, this very long trick-taking game that ended up being a very wonderful, wonderful moment. It takes such a level of genius to come up with something like that and to see cards in different ways. I've seen a lot of discussions online where there's trick-taking with dominoes, there's trick-taking with, obviously, cards. 12-trip trick has poker chips, and before that it was crokinole pieces. And then I've seen things like Bremen or Peter's Two Sheepdog have like meeples or 3D printed things. So it's so cool and so clever to use a postage card as the trick card itself, and to play a trick-taking game literally with the mail, not just through the mail. So clever, so interesting. I definitely lost. As you can tell, I'm showing off the cards that I should have been playing. The timing worked out to where I thought I'd have more time near the end, but I was traveling so much that I couldn't. I had some fun bits, though. I got to send in, if you remember from Niet, it comes with postcards, so I sent in one of those. Hopefully it was going to be Trump the week that I sent it in, but James didn't count it as such, sadly. Next, another game by Chris Ray, the Totally Not T9 of the first variety. So I haven't played Totally Not T9, but I have played Stamp Out Bootleggers, which was obviously what these are for. And sorry, I looked down and smiled again because I love the fact that it's signed for table. It's a small tangent. This happened at T9, where someone said table, or maybe they said trick or something, and I turned just instinctively. And it happens out in the wild. I'll do that. If someone says trick or trick-taking or something, and I'm out in the wild, not at a con, my ears are like radars, right? I'll respond to the word table or trick or taking. And it happened pretty badly there, where I didn't have it kind of like shut off to where I probably shouldn't be responding to trick-taking because people say it so much at a con about trick-taking. And I got caught a few times. But the worst was when I got caught when someone said, hey, is there a table over there? And I responded, ooh. Anyway, So, stamp out bootleggers, that idea of cards all on the table, and you can play from anyone's hand, and then also you're trying to have this Schadenfreude thing where you're trying not to hit or go over 40. Very fascinating concept. I think it plays with that idea of a no-luck, one-hand game. And first off, it's lovely to have a genre that can handle no-luck games just as interestingly as what it's kind of known for is shuffling up, dealing, seeing how you work with the hands. So that, first and foremost, is wonderful to see that it does work so well. Second is, it's a mind bender. Again, these are just first impressions because I don't know how to play it. I don't know what I was doing, but it was so cool to just look out on the board and be like, I can pick any card I want. And you can bank off that in interesting ways. The fact that you can't lead trump, very important. But also, once players' hands kind of get into a little bit of a rhythm, one hand can kind of be known for having trump. At least that happened in, the one hand we played, where players are like, okay, if I have to fall suit, or like if the lead suit's going to win in this case, I'm going to pull the lead suit out of this hand, and slowly one hand became kind of known for a certain suit. And of course it's player defined, but it was really cool to see how certain hands as a group became what we wanted them to be. I don't know if that's making any sense. Essentially, we would play mostly from one hand, so like one hand just became trump, really interestingly. But again, we played one hand, and it was definitely kind of groupthink of that one hand. But really cool idea. I really want to play it more, see how a meta evolves, how it goes. I think it's so smart to have that kind of Schadenfreude scoring, where you want to get as close to 40, but not bust. I also love the theme behind it, that it was meant for a 40-year birthday celebration. So it's cool that there's some wonderful things you can do with a theme with a game that's almost like a meta theme. And that's actually kind of getting back to the T9 postcard game. It's wonderful that you can have meta theme on trick-taking games and still have it be a very interesting one at that. So that was T9, a postcard game, and then Totally Not T9. Whoa, that's the back of it, but Totally Not T9 and Stamp Out Bootleggers. With that said, getting into the thoughts of the con. It's always so wonderful. It's always so magical. There's something to a trick-taking con where, maybe it's just me, I'm probably biased, but it's so fun to have a sense of exploration, because you have all those Japanese trick-taking games that are fresh from the market, and then also people who are excited about that and who are translating it and are always like, I'd love to play whatever wild game you pull from this library vault. And James fosters such a great community of people who are like-minded, and I think as I grow older, it's nice to recognize the amazing people you're surrounded by, and I think it's one of the hallmarks of the T-pound, T-number, T8, series is those people. It's a wonderful thing. It's I don't want to say magical. That sounds a little cheesy, but there's something in the air, and it's always so wonderful. So thanks so much, James. This has been a month now or so, and it's bringing me back already. Just looking at these games that I brought some games out. I'll try to cover them as I play them, or cover them in order that I play them, and they're just going to be some initial thoughts, and also some thoughts I like to, when I'm at a convention like this, kind of ask people if I see them playing a game I just played, or if they're going to play it next, because there's only so many copies. I always love being like, how did it go? And hearing from that. So it's cool to kind of get a vibe of the room. So I'll try to go chronological. We'll see. I took photos. I try to take photos of the games. You can't see that, but I'll put it up on the screen. I try to take photos of the games because it's always such a whirlwind. You try to keep track, but you're chatting, and they're quick games, so they go by so fast. And it's obviously, so much about the company, so much more about the company than the games. But you still try to keep track of, I log plays. So you sometimes try to keep track of what you play. The first game I played was... Conclusion. This game is fascinating. First off, it's one of the funniest covers to inside graphic design kind of... I don't want to say this, it's not mean, but you just don't expect like these symbols and kind of like loud colors from the cover, especially because the other trick-taking game by the same collective, Triterops, because in Japan, torite or trite is Japanese for trick-taking, but also same thing. It's like a dinosaur, it's like a crazy dinosaur kind of card theme inside of this, maybe more calm and reserved cover. Anyway, all that aside, what is this game? It's called Conclusion. And if you have watched this channel for a while, Conclusion sounds similar to Collusion, I guess. The David Partlett game that we covered back in the day is a 4-player game. It's called Collusion because you and all the other players at the table can collude. The whole thing is you and exactly one other player need to win the same amount of tricks. If you do, very good. But if you mess up and you get the same as 2 other players, then the person that was the odd one out actually scores. And there's this whole thing where you can kind of say whatever you want at the start of a round. You're like, hey, I love hearts suit, and I think I'm going to win 4 tricks. You can just be pretty much open. You can't, I guess, say exactly what's in your hand, but it's pretty flexible. So this was an attempt to do a 3-player version of that. It was interesting. It worked cool for the most part. It worked well for the most part. The way they handle that missing 4th player is kind of a dummy player that goes to one of the actual players in the game. And you're trying to finagle it to where one of the players gets to control the dummy player, and the dummy player can still be a trick winner and can still be someone whose bid you can match with. So there's some interesting flow to the game. I don't know if I like it as much as Collusion, because when you lose out on that player and you get a dummy player instead, it's a less of what I think makes Collusion and thus Conclusion interesting, is that kind of camaraderie, that mixing it up, kind of trying to collude with other players. It was still interesting. It added some trick play wackiness, but I don't think we got to the colluding yet. I think the trick play was so bizarre that I don't think we got to even talking too much to each other. Whereas in Collusion, you get there very, very fast. So we'll see. Jury's still out on this. It was interesting, though. Next one is Loop. If you have watched the channel, we've covered Open, where the premise is it's a climbing shitting game where your hands are a little bit open, and then you bid on which player you think is going to go out. And this is the sequel. This is just the next game in that kind of lineup. It just has similar art, and it's a very small form factor climbing shitting game. But the hook of this one is, it's called Loop, because you are playing cards to try to go out, but all the cards you play go back next to you because someone else is going to sit at your seat and play with your same hand. In fact, the whole game, your hand doesn't move. It's like duplicate bridge or whatever. Like your hand is the same in that seat the whole game. But depending on how well you do, you'll stand up and you'll move to a different spot. And it might be moving to the hand that actually got out first that round. And is it, it's one of those things where, can you do as well? So how it works is the scoring card for whoever went out first, or whichever hand went out first, goes over to that hand. And then if you, who go over there, don't get out first, you're going to kind of be losing points because that's supposed to be the best hand, right? But now players kind of know what's in the hand, and there's different ways to play cards. It's really, really interesting. It was one of the more played games of the con, and I'll say, so I liked it. I didn't like it at all at 3 because you get this weird thing where you have to change hands, right? So like if I go that way, then that person just swaps with that one. So there's less swapping. It's kind of like you just move a chair. And it becomes less interesting, especially if one of the hands is just bad. So then it's like you play multiple hands. It's first to a certain point value. So over the course of like 3-4 hands, you're like, okay, this hand's definitely just bad. You can have just like bad hands. Because, another thing I haven't explained, but the 8s in the game, because it's classic Daifugo, where 8s are important, you use them as powers. They let you stop a trick immediately and then take control, which is huge. Or you can put it in front of you, because you always cut 2 cards from your hand. So it could be one of those cut cards. You can flip it and be like, actually, we're not going from 1s to 15s, we're actually going from 15s down to 1s. So it's a lot of power. I wish those were equally dealt out, because as it stands, they just get randomly dealt out. And if you get a hand that doesn't have one of those 8s, or sometimes certain hands get 2 of the 8s, which is well, you just have less control. And you might be like, well, everyone has to change hands. Well, it's like, yeah, but especially at 3, you get into this rough situation where you're like, oh, I have this hand again. It's just kind of dumb. So I like it the most at 4, but that problem can still arise. But it's still really interesting. I liked it a lot. Players, I think it was kind of like a Marmite game. I had some people who really didn't like it, and I had players who like absolutely loved it, like Game of the Con. So I think it was interesting. Might want to sand those edges down, because there's sometimes just like feel bad moments in the game where you're just like, oh, I have to play this hand again. This hand's the rough. But some of the best moments in the game is where you take a hand that always is losing and you flip it and you get second or even first. That feels so good. So it's one of those games that can allow for this. Oh, this hand's always bad. Oh, I'm going to show you that it's good. Those moments can happen. But sometimes, especially if you get just like a really middling hand and there's not really good pairs or anything, because it's a climb shitting game where this melts, you can kind of get into a rut, and it's not fun to play that specific hand. So overall, really cool game. I hope to do a video on it soon. That's most of the thoughts, though. I've played it, played like 4 or 5 times. So hopefully play it more. But that was one of the bigger ones of the con. The next huge one from the con, but we already have a video on this, Sumida River. It's up there with Loop. Tons of people playing it. Tons of people loving it. I know someone that I showed this to, I think the 2nd or 3rd game in the con, and they ended up being the one to show it to, I think, 4 or 5 different groups. Yeah, wild. And overall, really big hit. I think this Mashikamaru did an amazing job on this. Go check out Sumida River for the full thoughts on that. Next, there was a game, or a lot, we kind of played maybe 1.5 games of 11. So what is that? 5.5. We played 16.5 of 11. It's an interesting one. So the premise is, it's a shedding game where when you go out, instead of just like going out, right, you randomly draw a card from the deck, and that's how many points you get. You're trying to get to 11. And in the deck, I think it's like 0 through 10. Yeah, 0 through 10. So, I think. Anyway, so you can draw a 9, and you get 9 points. And you're like, wow, that seems random and crazy. But what happens is, the points you get are the number of cards you have to redraw and then try to go out again. Wild. So, interesting. Yeah, interesting. So you're kind of like shedding. That's a really cool idea. In practice, though, it's been a while since I played this. In practice, though, what's tough is if you get like 1 or 2 or 3 points, the actual act of going out, there's almost like, what's a good analogy? It's almost like when you get into a taxi or an Uber or whatever have you. You pay like $5 or whatever, or $10, and then you pay per mile. It's kind of like the concept. You have like an initial fee, and then you pay for the ride. So if you're going like 10 blocks, it's probably good just to walk, because the taxi is going to be a good amount of money, and then it's going to be a small amount of money on top of it, right? So that's kind of how 11 feels. You draw like a 1, 2, 3. You're like, I got a low amount of points, and I have to like do the whole rigmarole of like shedding again. And the shedding, it's not the most satisfying. It's interesting, but it feels kind of like circling the drain. Some of it feels a little bit like the worst parts of like Hachi Train or Nanatori Dori. It's good. It's not bad. But it's just a tough thing where I think it's best to just go 7 and then like a 5 or something, right? Like get some cards, because if you get that like 1, 2, or 3 or 4, you have to like go all the way out, and then sometimes you just get 1, 2, 3, or 4 again and go all the way out. So you have to do that whole thing like 3 or 4 times, and it's actually like hard to do. There's like a hump. That's the initial fee, the taxi fee that you have to do, and then the mileage fee. And it's so much better just to get like a 6, 7, or 8 or 9, because that hump is not as bad when you have a little bit of the mileage, especially in a game where you kind of want good stuff to do stuff with your hand. Like if you get 1s, 2s, or 3s, there's not a lot of like flexibility. So another kind of like interesting but maybe like rough around the edges game. I know players who liked it a little bit more than me. I know players who liked it a lot less. So I'm kind of in the middle here. Again, like maybe a 5.5 out of 11. But I'm hoping to play it more. It is kind of a big hit on Japanese Twitter. At least I've seen it played a lot. So maybe I'm missing something. I do want to try it again. So that is 11. Next, we played Trick Runaway. So if you remember, Trick Raiders by the same people. N2 is wonderful. Camera died. Trick Raiders. Love Trick Raiders. I think it's so wonderful. Kind of goofy sometimes, but you know, it's part of the fun. But I love splitting up your hand and that showing cards or not. We have a video on it, so definitely check it out. Trick Runaway, the sequel. It's tough when you play a game and you're like, I wish I was playing a different game. So, not bad. But I don't know in what world I'd not want to be playing Trick Raiders. Well, okay. Don't want to be too mean. How does this play? Well, you have these cards that are kind of like life and then damage in a way. So if you lose a trick, you can choose to lose points or lower your card rank. And you don't want a low card rank. So you're kind of balancing losing points and low card rank. Kind of summarizing this in a weird way. But the game's just like a little bit fiddly. Like every time someone takes a trick, they have to like move down a thing. And there's kind of a choice, but not really a choice. And then you just kind of get worse and worse and worse. And it's also confusing to remember that your card is minus like 2. So if you play an 8, you actually played a 6. And things just kind of feel off. It's like a really stuttered, kind of stilted way to do like a lose a life type game that I don't think is worth it. A lot of people say like, is the juice worth the squeeze? Not to me. I'd much rather play Trick Raider. So kind of interesting. Was really excited for it. I think everyone at the table was really excited for it because everyone I played with was super into Trick Raiders. Someone that I played it with said they brought Trick Raiders to a wedding, and I think people played it like 50 times that night. So they were super, super excited, and they were equally let down as I was. So hoping to play it again, but a little bit, which stinks because Trick Raiders was so good. So, what are you gonna do? Next, okay, this was a very interesting one. This is The Boy and the Giant, and it's by the same person who did, I'm trying to move some things around so I can show you, Copernicus. It's a game that we're about to cover. Super interesting one. It's kind of like Niet to the Moon. So it's on our choices, the voices month that we have taken forever to get to. But so, The Boy and the Giant. The premise is you have, it's like Monster Trick, where you're playing 2 different tricks, like kind of like a trick lane type game. But each lane is a tree with leaves on it, and everyone will play to it once. And there's kind of like a flow to it where there's red cards and blue cards, and when you break a tree, you have to fall suit on the tree to the trunk. If it's a red tree, it's highest wins. If it's a blue tree, it's lowest wins. So you're kind of trying to balance that. And then when you win, you take a couple cards from the tree, and if the loser takes like a card from the tree. or whatever order, and you're trying to balance the number of blue cards and red cards, or take a lot of red and a lot of blue without getting any of the other ones. It's interesting. It's a little bit of a weird flow. Everyone liked it. Wasn't 100% sure if they liked it, but I think there was something there that could be really cool. We played it at a little bit of a higher player count, so I want to play again at maybe 3 or so, just to see how it goes. But yeah, it's an interesting flow of, do I play the last card in this trick, kind of like Monster Trick? Do I break it up and take it now? And then it's kind of like set collection-ish. So some interesting ideas, hoping, again, I say this broken record, to play some more and see how it feels. Because, you know, games can build on you. I think I sometimes will change opinions on between that, you know, 3rd play and that 5th play. So I do try to leave some openness there. Next was an interesting game of we will not cover that. It's called Master of Pizza. Whew. The premise is, do you ever play Mamma Mia by Uwe Rosenberg? It's that in a way. You are playing cards that are ingredients and you're like adding them to your pot, and then you're trying to make pizzas with it. But it's weird because you kind of just like want ingredients, and so high cards are just good. So someone would just win a lot, get a lot of ingredients for the pizza, and then they make their pizza. It wasn't that good. It wasn't very good. Then we played some prototypes. It's always fun to play people's prototypes, especially if they come up with them at the con. That's always so much fun. And then we played a Taiki that I haven't covered yet. I haven't covered because I don't know how I feel about this game. I don't think I love it. There's just a lot of math. It's so cool. I love the idea. It's pin combi trio, by the way. Pins as in ones, combi as in combis, and trios. The premise is you can play gaps. So like if you play like a 12, 22, 32, that's a gap of 10, because there's 10 between. And then you're climbing on gaps. So if the next person wants to beat that, they'd have to play a gap of like 11 or higher. So maybe like a 3, a 14, and a 25, right? Because it's a gap of 11. Interesting concept, but whew, you're just, like, I love math, but you are just sitting there looking at your hand at the start and being like, okay, so I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, and like someone will play or lead and they'll be like, I can do this. I'll just be like, pass. And the next person's like, oh, I guess I could do this. Like, it's just, you are looking at your cards for a while, and it is very AP prone. Cool concept. Love an improv theme. You know, I love an improv theme. But yeah, I don't know if I love, it's just very math and like AP prone for a climbing shitting game of that ilk. Like, I think it's simple, but AP prone, which is kind of the opposite, right? Like, I want like an Ambiente, Abyssal, or Planet EQ, where it's simple, cool, and breezy. Or like I want a Haggis, right? Where it's like crunchy, deep, you know, whatever. And so I think it's a tough kind of balancing act there. Next we played Gummi Trick. Oh, yikes. Ooh. I don't want to say my least favorite, because there's one coming up that is much worse. But Gummi Trick just, yeah, didn't hit. I think everyone I played it with was just like, eh. It's tough when the nicest comments that you get from people who play are like, maybe it's a good kids game. Not a good sign. I think it's because you have to follow suit, but you can just randomly flip a card. So kind of fun moments, but also just like kind of random. And also, if you're short suited, you're just winning a ton of points. So, I don't know. Yeah, maybe a good kids game. Oh, eeks. Just not the most interesting. Then we played Xylotar, which we have a video for. Came out last week. So check that out. Xylotar's a hoot. I then played this game. So, I don't know how to review this. This is wild. This is Paradometor. So, some background. In this box here is an escape room puzzle that is interesting, elaborate, fun. You need some hints. There's some maybe Japanese, English, tough translations. I had someone help me through this. Thank you so much, Kenny. And the escape room is worth it. It is so much fun. It's such a cool escape room. There's like codes on the sides, or kind of hints on the sides, and then everyone in the game has a player screen when you play, which I'll explain how to play in a little bit. But on the player screen, there's like hints and monitors that you like overlap with things, and they reveal clues, and it's super cool. It's super cool. So, escape room wise, great stuff. Is it a good trick-taking game? Yikes, I don't know. So the premise is you have these monitors that you put down, and there's a gap in between. I don't know if you can see the tiny gap in between, but you flick out. So say you have a 6 yellow, you flick out your card, because players aren't supposed to know whether it's past, present, or future. So it's kind of like a time traveling theme. But all that past, present, and future does is a lot of pomp and circumstance to break a tie. Because the whole thing about the game is like, did you play the same number? Did you tie someone? If you did, we have to check if your tie is closest to the past, or if the other one is, in the future. And then the closest to the past person wins. So it's a cool concept, a little gimmicky just to do a tie break. It also isn't like that fun. You're trying to like match the numbers, and if you can't, you're just like, guess I'm not gonna win. It seems like such a cool game, and unless we were playing it wrong, it's very basic. It's kind of getting back to Gummi Trick, where you're like, is there something more to this? And we couldn't find it. So that is Paradometor. Maybe there's something to it. All these, again, hoping to play again. And I realize I'm being like really negative. This is interesting, very interesting. So let me flip it around so you can see how it plays. There are cards. This is a cooperative game with missions. So very crew-ish. But in addition, each person's card has a shape, like a polyomino shape. And the winner of the trick will take their shape right there, and they'll put it on the board. And on the board are birds we're trying to photograph. You're trying to fully surround these birds. So as you can see, they play the 8 red, which won, and then they put that shape surrounding this bird here. So it's a cooperative game. You can't talk about where to place them. The theme is cute. It says you can't speak or else you're going to scare away the birds. So fun. It's such a fun feeling where it's the best in a co-op, where you can't talk and everyone's watching someone do something, and it's like, would I do that? I don't know. You can't really say anything. And there's openness in the board play and in the card play, but in the board play specifically, where the winner of the trick isn't you, and you're watching a partner, teammate, co-op, plays surrounding a bird, you're like, that is not what I wanted you to do. Oh no. And then trying to work with that in a really fun way. We had this kind of joke thing where if someone wanted something, they would be like rubbing their hands like birds, and then when everybody thought it's where they wanted it, they would rub their hands really loud. Obviously cheating, but so much fun. So cool. Can't wait to cover this. We're definitely going to cover it soon. There's just so many missions. I want to play more of them. I played maybe 10 of the 40 or so, or 30. So I'm hoping to play more, especially the harder ones. Super cool concept. Obviously like a big box for a trick-taking game, but there's, chock full of tiles, and it makes sense why it's so big. There's a board and everything. Also has a really, really cool trumping mechanism, where the card that wins the last trick is now the trump for the next trick, which is like, okay, whatever, right? Because usually people are in suit. But as players get off suit, it's so interesting, because if you are off suit and you have a trump that recently won, you're probably going to just win the rest. There's moments where I thought I was fine, and then someone won in a color that I had 2 small ones in, and I was like, oh no, I'm winning the rest. But what's cool is, if you trump in with a small one, it gives you more flexibility, which is what you need later on in the hand. It's really cool. Really, really cool system. Loved it. It was called Cacao and Party Friends, I believe. Really cool. So far, the highlight of the trip. We played also this wild game. So, I don't know how many, I think it was 28 player. I don't know how many 28 player games you've played. I've played an okay amount. I've played Mega Civ. I've played a lot of Mega games. And a 28 player game is unique. Not only because it's 28 player games. Add to that a 28 player team-based trick-taking game. That's right, we played military whist. Whew! So, how this works. Everybody gets in a group of 4. That is your team. That is your country. You're going to get a country flag. I was Japan. I was with the amazing people that I will not name, but they're amazing. And we won, by the way. Spoiler alert, we won. And how it works is you play, I think it wants you to play about 30 games of military whist. Let me give you a hint. Military whist is whist. That's it. It's whist. But how it works is 2 player from a country stay and 2 player from a country go. How it actually works, which is interesting, is one person's the captain of the team and they don't move at all. I was the captain of Japan. It was kind of like a self-sacrifice there because as a joke for the Japan group, let me step a little bit further back. Each country also has a deck of cards. You're playing with a standard deck because it's whist. If you don't know whist, it's just the simplest trick-taking game ever. May or may not be a trump suit. It's highest lead suit. If there's trump, highest trump. You play, I think it's 13 tricks, 14 tricks. I don't remember. 15 tricks, 13 tricks. I don't remember. You have to win a majority of the tricks, and you win. I think it's 13 because if you win 7, you win. That's it. It's just deal them all out. Try to win. Every country had a specific special deck. We in Japan decided to play with the jumbo cards. I think there should be a picture. It was so funny. So hard to shuffle, so hard to play with. And so I, as captain of Japan, and just, you know, trying to be nice to people visiting Japan. We care about that as lovely hosts to our nation. I would always shuffle the deck. Shuffling a jumbo deck of cards is insane. And dealing them is horrible. Holding them is already bad enough. And people would lament when they came over to Japan. Either returning visitors being like, oh man, this place again. Or newcomers who were completely shocked at the weird ways of how big our cards were. So much fun. Such a hoot. The cool thing was, at the very end, the last match was worth 3, and we tied with another team, but there were some shenanigans. So I think we actually won. So much fun. So much fun. Never had that much fun playing whist. And the funniest thing was someone came in late after we already set it all up, and they were like, oh, it's okay. I'll go get one of those, like, there's a Japanese solo trick-taking game. I'll just go get one of those. So it was in a room where 28 people were playing a trick-taking game, and one person was playing a solo trick-taking game. As if, like, yeah, we just don't have enough players who would play a trick-taking game. Sorry, you do have to play solo, because we are too busy playing a 28-player game. So funny. It was absolutely a highlight. And just watching it all get set up was so funny. So that was military whist. Absolute wild ride. Speaking back on good games, because I think for some reason, I don't know why, I just played a lot of games that I'm not sure I love. This one is good. Baranda. This was also a hit. This one, loop, No, I liked Loop. Why am I being such a negative Nelly? And I liked Sumida River. But Sumida River, Loop, and this one were up there with the most played of the con. And this one is so interesting. First off, really fun art. Really lovely art. The premise to this is a little bit like Off Falscher Farhi, where we're going to cover this for No Voices, so this is coming up. Oh, there's just too many games to cover. Anyway, this one is, players are going to be secretly adding a card to this kind of pot, and over the course of the first like 4 or 5 tricks, you're going to find out whether it's an avoidance game or a trick-taking game. Super fluid, super clean. I don't want to spoil alert it, I like it. But Baronda does something similar. Baronda works where players are bidding on how many tricks they think they're going to win. If they bid too high, then it becomes an avoidance game. If they bid too low, then it becomes a take game. So you're looking at your hand, you're like, oh, I have a really high hand. Do I actually bid a little low to make it so it is like a win tricks game? Or do I bid validly because I need that leniency if it's actually a trick avoidance game to be able to take some tricks? It's interesting. I really, really like it. There's some cool card play that lets you mitigate it. Like if you have a card that's like a trump, if it's played at the right time, it's actually like a lose. So you have flexibility in the card play. I think, though, there's a little much going on, and I think I compare it a little bit too much to this one, All Farsche Farte, which I think is a little bit better. We'll see. I do want to play this a lot more. I think it's cool. I think it's gorgeous. The bidding is super cool, but it's going to be tough to uncouple these in my head because it is just so... Oh, players think it's going to be trick-taking? Well, it's actually going to be avoidance and like kind of like that type of situation. Hopefully play it more, but this one, tons of people loved it. Really cool. Hoping to play it more. This was also a good one of the con. A lot of people talking about it too, which is really, really fun. Then we played Don't Drop Your Ring. This one, first off, really cute theme. The premise is you have a ring on your hand, you're going to a jeweler, and you don't want too many jewels on the ring because it'll slide off. Or you don't want it to be too big of jewels, or else it'll slide off. And you don't want to have too many gems because then it's too like audacious. I don't 100% know the theme, but the hook is if you win a trick and someone else played the same number, it actually counts as winning an extra trick. So there's kind of like some ways you can like kind of mess with some players. And it's also like Nikosu dice where dice get rolled and you draft for your bid on how many tricks you think you're going to win. But there's going to be a die remaining, and if that die is 1 through 3, then actually low numbers are stronger. And if the die is 4 through 6, then high numbers are stronger. So you're kind of bidding, and you're like, I don't really know what's going to happen. I think I played it at 5, and then later I played it at 3. At 5 players, the drafting of the bid just is like, anything can happen. And it's not as interesting, because if you bid high thinking, oh, it's going to be a normal game, and then people slowly bid to where it's actually 1s are stronger than 7s, 7s are the highest card in the game, then you get into a tough situation where you're bidding on the like things that are the opposite, and it's just too tough to plan for. But at 3 players, you get into enough control, especially when there's only 4 dice out there, to where you can really think, okay, this is probably going to be a normal game, and you can kind of bid off that, which is nice. And you're not too surprised by taking too many. So I liked it at 3. There's some cool ideas there, some fun production as well, and kind of a goofy theme. So this one was above average of the ones I played, which is cool. Then we played Iados, which was great. I always love Iados. I have the video for that on the channel. And we played Sandbag, which again was last week. So some fun ones back to back after that. And then I'm nervous even talking about this game on the channel. We played one of the worst games I've ever played. I'm gonna do an overview. It's called Stanford. It's based on the Stanford Prison Experiment. And the theme is already bad, and it's handled worse. And then the gameplay itself isn't really a game. The gameplay is you play into a trick, and the winner takes the card that they won and puts it off to the side. You keep playing. You play 8 tricks this way. That essentially creates a pile of 8 cards, and then you splay them out. And after that, players draft from those cards on which ones they want to use. And you can pass. So the trick taking is just this elaborate setup to kind of do nothing. So that's not good. And the rest of the game is just bad. Easily one of the worst games I have ever played. Yeah, go check it out if you want to see one of the worst games I've ever played. And I've played some bad ones. Need I remind you of Hummingbird Game, and although I kind of liked it, the 24 card game Countdown, which I'm on a mission to have the 24 Countdown card game be rated a 2.4 on BGG. That's right. It's one of the worst rated games of all time, down there with Tic-Tac-Toe. But whew, Stanford should be there. So that was Stanford. Then we played, which was really sweet, we played Short Zoot Suit, which is really, really fun. I always feel nervous playing my own games. Not that I don't want to, or that I don't find them, interesting still, or whatever it may be. But I feel this guilt of I don't want to waste anyone's time. There's sounds like something I need to work through. But I always feel guilty playing my own games. But it was so fun to do so, especially because people were seeing the art and the Saibaku art for the first time. Oh, just the absolute best. Then got a little bit late. We played Last Message. It was a really fun game, kind of a party game where the premise is someone's writing a message to hint to their team, but a bad person is going to erase most of that message and give it back to the team. So it's kind of like all these blobs. It seemed like a game that after a few plays you could come up with kind of like tricks to always win. We even played with the item. You're trying to clue in on a person. And then advanced mode, you can play where you're trying to clue in on an item, which is supposed to be harder. And we still won. Maybe we're just too good at it. Really fun concept, though. Then we played Kabanga? And I mean, kind of like like an easier 6 Nimmt. It was interesting in terms of how goofy things could get, but I don't know if I loved it. It was just, you're playing cards, which was fun. It was always fun to be playing cards with some cool people. Then we played an interesting game of Thunder Road. If you've heard of it, it's this thematic, wild, crazy kind of Mad Max Fury Road game where everything can happen. Things are blowing up. We played with every single module, which is so much fun. It was amazing to play that in the middle of a trick-taking retreat. Because it was the most like, this rule happens because it's the most thematic, or this rule happens because it's the most extreme. And that's always fun to see. After that, we played this old game called Beggars and Thieves, which I love seeing older trick-taking games because there is just as much innovation in there as there are coming out now out of Japanese scene or just like different circles anywhere across the world. And I think some of them just like kind of get lost in time. Like you could pitch this old 60s game like Beggars and Thieves right now, and players would be like, oh, interesting. It does partnership in such an interesting way. The premise is, it's like Vivaldi or Napoleon or those other type of games that we've covered where you'll have a partner. It'll be the card that says your partner. But what's so interesting is when the card gets played that says it's your partner, you can say no. Wild. So usually in Vivaldi or Napoleon or like those types of games where players are giving out points and they're like, oh, who's my partner? I hope my partner is the one who took all these points. If the partner isn't like doing that much or carrying their weight and they finally reveal themselves, you could be like, no, I did all the work. So cool. Love that little twist. The deck makeup's a little bit goofy, and I think if you have just like a good hand, you have a good hand. So there's some things to be ironed out, but from a game that came from, I want to say 30s, 40s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and today, I don't know. I'll put up the date when it came out, or maybe I won't. Maybe I'll forget. But for when it came out, I was very impressed with that really, really cool hook. Then we did the prize table, which was so amazing. It was just a wonderful experience. James put so much work into the prize table and has so many just wonderful, wonderful things that I got a Bridge Cup my second year. It says, a bad day at the bridge table is still better than cleaning house. Classic. And this year I personally picked this game called Fortran, which is a roll and move using Fortran coding, because I'm a software developer. But I picked it for someone else who was like, oh, I really, really want it. And so they grabbed for me the Automatical, which is like this AI dummy player trick-taking game that I've yet to play. I think Bizarro themes are just so interesting to me, and Japan kind of has it in spades. But it was so great to see that wonderful, wonderful prize table. And the really fun thing was I decided to put some of my games on there, and it was fun to see people take those and be really excited. And I went over and I said thank you, because anybody who would want my game that's a very kind gesture. So the next thing we did, which was so much fun, there's a word for it. I think it's called Isildur. Sounds like something from Lord of the Rings. I think it's like Icelandic for an ice cream walk. So it's like a beer crawl, pub crawl, but for ice cream. We went around to all these wonderful places and got ice cream. And a little bit about me, I have food FOMO, where if I go to a new place, I'm not sure if I'm ever going to go back, I buy everything. It's just, you know what, I'll eat leftovers later. It's fine. I just love sampling stuff. I think it is the most fun thing in the world. I realize an ice cream tour is my kryptonite. So we went to the first place and I tried as much as I could. Bought a bunch, 3 scoops, went the whole 9 yards. Then we went to another place, same thing. Third place, same thing. At the 4th place, I had so much ice cream in me. I was gonna explode, but it was so much fun. Had a hot toddy ice cream, black licorice. Had a French onion soup ice cream. Whew. It still gives me chills to this day. Whew. But we had the long-running tradition. Me and Lucas, we always play Lines of Action. And it's always with different materials. The second year we made it out of something. The first year we played it with a chess set outside in the snow. Negative temperatures, I remember it. Probably wasn't that cold, but felt cold. This time we played on one of those kind of like hand-woven checker mats, you know, where like the dimensions are a little bit off. Like they're supposed to be squares, but they're like kind of not really squares. And then we played with those giant checker pieces that are bigger than the squares. And we played it on a tiny table that's smaller than the board. So everything was bigger than it should have been, or smaller than it should have been. And it was so much fun. Eating ice cream, having a blast. And Line of Action is so good. We played it in 2 people who were kind of go maniacs. Were watching, and they kind of could intuit it from the gameplay, and they were comparing it to Go, and we were talking about Go, which is another, obviously amazing abstract. But it's so much fun to have those moments at like a trick-taking con where you're doing non-trick-taking stuff and have it kind of stand out and be so much fun. And the other cool thing was this specific ice cream spot, or tour, ended on an ice cream spot that had kind of a card theme. Like, as you can see, there's like a card globe, a card tower, card painted on the walls, a card stack, and I look terrifying. but there I am in the card stack. And it was so much fun. The bathrooms, cards. The neon signs, cards. It was really cool. Then, the saddest moment of the con. So, last year, me and Ricky, the designer of Salvage, St. Patrick, Coup, Rankster, Chameleon, the Ricky, and I were the winners of the Teachu tournament. The 2023 Teachu tournament. And not to brag, but it was on our name tags. Yeah, pretty big deal. This was the Teachu rematch. It didn't go well, folks. It didn't go well. There was a time where I lost and I had to put on lipstick. There were some wonderful moments. I think Ricky and I did a great job overall. It was late. It was tough. We were hitting. We were holding our own. There's moments where we were doing wonderful moments, 1-2s. We were calling grands and hitting them, teachers and hitting them. Ricky did way better than I did. But sadly, they did win. So, looking forward to next year where we reclaim the title. We, as a joke, because we're calling it like a teacher tournament, and like we're calling it like, or the winners of the teacher tournament, and but there's no signups, and it's just us four. So as a joke, we made the signups for the next year's, and then put it out there quietly when we finished the teacher tournament this year, which was like 1 a.m. or something, or 2 a.m. And then we closed it promptly at like 2:05. So sadly, no one really signed up. I don't know why, but we're going to have a Teachu tournament next year, and Ricky and I are going to reclaim our throne. Oh, interrupting Taylor here. I forgot to cover this one as I was cleaning up. This is Disaster is Coming. It's an interesting one. It's an avoidance game where once these 4 suits are played, super bad. You don't want to win that trick where the 4th suit is played. But then they all reset. So it's kind of like this tension. It's like push and pull. You don't want to win any tricks, really. But there's also, everyone gets these 2 cards, which you need to play, or else very bad things will happen. That happened to me, because oops, I pushed my luck too long. And when the 4 suits are played, not only is it a really bad trick, but it flips the ranking. So the highs are now lows. Wild timing game. I had a good time with it. Most people I played with had a good time with it. Hoping to play it more, just played a hand. But another one that I think was one of the better games of the con.
Hey, Editing Taylor here. Yes, this is me editing. In fact, I know what you just watched.
I think was one of the better games of the con.
That's right. You just watched that. This is a forgotten memory that I just remembered that was so funny. So, last T8 at the con, someone texted me a rules question, and I get that a lot. I get a lot of rules questions, and I will sometimes be asked them just walking through the con. And so James decided, as a hilarious joke, to put my number as a coupon, like a message me whenever, if you take this prize, you have 1 free rules question from the rules person on the other side of this phone number. And what was hilarious was people would just message me questions because they could just look at the phone number for free. So I was getting so many messages, and there was a point during the Teacher tournament that, if you're familiar with The Office, it was like I got woofed, I got a phone call, a text, a Twitter DM, a Discord DM, a BGG message, an email. What else? I got like 90 texts. It was wild. I've never seen that many notifications on my phone. I thought there was a tsunami about to hit my house. I didn't know what to think. It was hilarious. It's a great bit. Anyway, thought I would recount that while I edit. Awesome. Well, here is what you are about to watch.
The next game we played was the Archie Bunker card game.
Ooh, that sounds fun. All right. Go watch it. Bye.
The next game we played was the Archie Bunker card game. You know how I said certain old games have really cool ideas that are kind of hidden in the throes of time? Some games need to remain that way. This game was rough and oof, and I think it was essentially just oh hell. So, nah, no thanks. Then we played Muscle Taking. Oh, hurtful. This was a game I was so excited to play because the art, hilarious. And the people at the booth were so nice. Almost there. Almost a concept, but really rough. Not the best game. Then we played Fortran, which is a roll and move game that I talked about earlier. Fascinating. Fascinating. You can get into loops, 4 loops. This is for all you coders out there. You can get into 4 loops that never end. You essentially are changing the print values, which is how you score. And then every time you hit print on a variable, you get points. You're changing the variable values. So like you're plus 10 to a variable times a variable 6. And you will land on players and send them all the way back to the start. So it's kind of like an infinite loop game, which, you know, everyone loves. Then we played Last Penguin. Oh, this game's wild. The premise is kind of like Twister with your fingers, but also some bluffing. Because you could be like, does anybody want to join me on this card? And put it kind of far off and be like, put your fingers on it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And some people are like, he's kind of putting it far away. Do I want to? And they'll put it on. And then at the end, you'll be like, boop, nope. And if anyone has one finger on a card, they have to take that card. And sometimes it's positive points. Most of the time it's positive points. Sometimes it's negative points. So you kind of want to take the card. It's wild. As you can see, people are all over themselves. Interesting game. Then we played one of my favorite games. It's called Yo Man. The premise is it's a 2v2 game where you are making direct eye contact with your partner. And you have to sequentially do a handshake. So, yo, 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 man. And then you add a next step. And the next team has to do that. And it's like horse. You make a shot. If they miss the shot, they lose a life. And you get this wild handshake that everyone kind of memorizes. It's kind of like a group memorization. And it's so funny. Because we did it. And you get like you carry, you know how like those games that you carry something like an inside joke or something from the game, and then it just like pops back up later. Me and my partner did it perfectly at the end. We won, and then later in the day, we did it again, hit it perfectly. And what was wild was bystanders who were watching, we were able to walk up to them, and they did it perfectly. Oh, what a moment! It was so much fun. It was such a hoot. We played Nervos, which is Taiki's real-time puzzle polyomino game. Interesting game. Not my type of game, but very interesting. I don't think I can go that fast. Speaking of Whist was a little bit of the theme of the weekend. James pulled out this game called Wicked Whist, which has a board where it's kind of like Candyland and Whist. Interesting. A little bit interesting. The final thing we did was went to an Indian restaurant and we had ballooned up bread, which was delicious. It was such a wonderful convention. It always is. It always is. The people there are so amazing. And what's great is it's always the people there were so amazing. I don't know if I like comparing the games I played. I think the previous 2 years, I think I played better games, but I had equally, maybe more, of an amazing time. Just because the people are so wonderful. There's that thing where you are learning about someone, playing with them, making inside jokes, laughing about it, and it's all while playing these games. They don't... I know this whole channel is about trick-taking, and it's hard to say the game doesn't matter as much as the people, but it really is a wonderful moment where just these, you know, square pieces of paper and cardboard can make it to where you're connecting and having so much fun with someone that you didn't think possible, strangers to you years ago, that now you think of as amazing, amazing friends that you cannot wait to hang out with again. I've learned that as I get more hair on my face and less on my head, that I cannot be thankful enough for being surrounded by such amazing, wonderful people. And James has a knack for finding them, and so many of them. So thank you so much, James. Just a wonderful convention, as always. And I will leave you now with a quote that someone said so much and so late in the night that all of us were crying, laughing. It is: why is it called an of-in when you of-in the cold food, but you of-out hot eat the food? It's a quote from Michael Esterol. Thanks so much for watching. Whew. What a world we live in, right? Okay, bye.